Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. We are still discussing the elections. Naturally, happens once in 5 years, has a huge impact on our lives. This time, we have moved from Modi 3.0, or what we would like to call Modi Sarkar, to NDA 3.0. Remember, it's not Modi 3.0, even if the media tells you so. It is NDA 3.0. It's a new era of course correction and balancing conflicts. Now, why do I say so? Yes, it is too early to judge, but the salutary impact of the people's election verdict is perhaps evident from the fact that we have now begun to call it NDA 3.0. And don't bother about mainstream media insisting it's Modi 3. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set the ball rolling. After being sworn in for the third time, he has, of course, retained his core team of ministers, but he has a huge cabinet, and his first two decisions suggest a course correction already. The PM began his new innings by approving a plan to build 30 million houses for the rural and urban poor and released a 20,000 crore installment to benefit 93 million farmers. And he declared, and I'm quoting, "Ours is a government fully committed to Kisan Kalyan, farmer welfare. It is therefore fitting that the first file signed on taking charge is related to farmer welfare." Now, those of you who have watched mainstream media know that this is a stark contrast for a government that used barbed wire, concrete barriers, and put spikes on the road to block the march of agitating farmers to Delhi not such a long time ago. Let's look at the government itself. The Bharatiya Janata Party and its allies are bravely celebrating a third term. But Mohan Bhagwat, the chief of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, RSS, has punctured this narrative with his candid criticism. Speaking in Nagpur recently, he said a lot of things. Now, why does RSS matter? Because the RSS is the ideological mentor of the BJP, and it's a key grassroots mobilizer for the party during elections. This time, things were different. We were into a 400 par slogan. So BJP President JP Nadda, right in the middle of the elections, suddenly gave an interview where he said that BJP no longer needed the RSS and it can manage its own affairs. The verdict contradicts this. It shows that he was wrong, but RSS members have reportedly felt quite humiliated, and maybe the election verdict is saying something. In fact, this episode lends added significance to Mr. Bhagwat's criticism of the BJP. He talked about BJP's arrogance, ahankar, its falsehoods, lack of decorum, and the adversarial stance that it has taken up against opposition parties. Those of you who haven't seen it, here's a clip of what he had to say.
अब 1 साल से मणिपुर शांति की राह देख रहा है, उसके पहले 10 साल शांत रहा, पुराना गन कल्चर समाप्त हो गया ऐसा लगा, और अचानक जो कलह वहां पर उपज गया या उपजाया गया, उसकी आग में अभी तक जल रहा है, त्राही त्राही कर रहा है. कौन उस पर ध्यान देगा? प्राथमिकता देके उसका विचार करना ये कर्तव्य है.
The RSS chief referred to a lot of things. He went on to talk about Manipur. Then he also said that positive things have indeed happened in the past 10 years, but the challenges facing the country haven't ended. And that's exactly what we are saying too, isn't it? Modi 2.0 may have failed to understand the biggest challenge of them all, which is the need for inclusive growth. You have to take all the people along. Now, here are a few issues where the party, according to me, failed to connect despite new initiatives in these areas and doing significant work. Let's start with Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. This is Prime Minister Shastri Lal Bahadur Shastri's slogan, and we have all grown up with it. Yet, BJP seems to have forgotten it. It alienated both farmers as well as soldiers. So in December 2021, we thought the government was on the right path. The Prime Minister repealed 3 controversial farm laws after prolonged year-long protest. But he failed to build bridges with the farmers or address their demands, including a minimum support price. Nothing happened. So a year later, or in fact 2 years later, the farmers marched to Delhi again. And what happened this time? The state went into war mode. Streets were barricaded with barbed wire, concrete blocks were put on huge highways, spikes were driven into the ground to stop the tractors. The farmers were abused, they were called traitors, Khalistanis. A vicious campaign was unleashed against them with the help of a pliant mainstream media and the party's own digital media cell, which works with really millions of accounts. The Modi government also went to war with people who opposed what it was doing in the armed forces. So it introduced the controversial Agnipath scheme, under which Agniveers would be enrolled in the Indian armed forces for just 4 years and they would retire. Lots of people, especially army veterans, very senior generals, have raised legitimate concerns about deploying ill-trained Agniveers at sensitive border positions. All of them met with the same treatment as the farmers. The Agniveer scheme, in fact, has caused such enormous resentment among the youth. Some say nobody wants to marry them anymore. And all this comes at a time when unemployment is running very high and people looked to the defense services for a long-term permanent job. The Congress party seems to have tapped into this sentiment because it had promised to scrap the scheme if it came to power. The BJP failed to read the extent of resentment. Will we see a course correction in NDA 3? Let's wait and watch. Now let's look at large areas, railway modernization, for instance. This is a much publicized area. Railway modernization has been so hyped up that we've been inundated with images of spanking new air-conditioned luxury trains being flagged off by none other than the Prime Minister in regular intervals, the Vande Bharats. We have beautifully drone-captured videos of these trains snaking through scenic routes of India. These were on social media. We loved it. Those who celebrated this and shared them happily were India's 80 million newly minted investors. And I've talked about this in previous videos. At least 8 out of 10 new investors have come in the last 3 years. They've seen only the upside. They made a lot of money and they think the world is nice and rosy. They have been sharing these videos along with a lot of other supporters. They have been the big beneficiaries of the massive budget allocation for railway modernization. How? Because stocks of all railway-related businesses shot up. They included signaling equipment, bogies, electronics, transformers, electrification. Companies such as Bharat Earth Movers, Hitachi, ABB, Siemens, Titagar Wagons, CG Power, their prices have been going up, up, and up. Among the beneficiaries of railway modernization is also the controversial mega engineering and infrastructure, which shot to the headlines because of the number of electoral bonds that it had purchased and donated to various parties. This bubble also was punctured when ghastly train accidents began to happen. There were train fires, multiple of them, multiple derailments, massive collision of 2 trains in Andhra Pradesh, which raised questions about what happened to the Kavach, Suraksha Kavach. And suddenly people were saying, is it all so hunky-dory? And became skeptical. If that wasn't bad enough, it soon became apparent that these luxury trains were deployed at the cost of passenger trains, which were reduced. Number of unreserved coaches had been reduced and replaced with AC coaches and sleeper coaches all over the place. Now, passenger trains and unreserved trains cater to the low economic groups and a large number of migrant labor that moves from many states in the north, especially to South India for work. They go back for holidays, they go back for festivals, they go back to vote. At certain times of the year, they are under a compulsion. They want to travel. And when they want to travel, there are no reservations, there are not enough trains. So something had to give. And it did. So what did they do? They just began to crowd reserved compartments, even the Vande Bharats, the air-conditioned compartments, to the extent that you may have a reserved AC, second class, third class, first class ticket. It is chock-a-block to the extent that you could not even use your toilet. And people obviously were furious and they began to post videos of what was happening on social media. In fact, all this seemed to snowball in the last 3-4 months. The railways actually tried to deny it, but then people, and remember, many of them were BJP supporters. They began to put the names of the trains and the time and posted these videos. How did the government react? Complete silence. They tried, some states tried to stop it, but it was too late because you cannot stop force of people who have no option. They're doing it out of desperation. Will this change? We have the same railway minister. We are waiting and watching. Now let's look at tolls and highways. Yes, this Ministry of Road, Transport and Highways is a top performer, undoubtedly. Look at what it says in its own year-end review, 2023. The national highway network is up 60% in the last 10 years from 2014. We have 146,145 kilometers, or let me put it, 146,000 kilometers of highways have been added since 2014. This is a pace of 28.3 kilometers of highway construction per day. Are we happy? Absolutely. But regular travelers, people who use these highways, especially truckers, are frustrated at the relentless increase in tolls, fuel prices, and taxes. The government has collected a lot. It has collected 48,028 crore in user fees in 22-23 alone. And these fees are collected on a massive 45,428 kilometers of roads. There is no alternate road. All roads on many routes are tolled. And this is a big departure. Earlier, you had to give an alternate untolled road. It's no longer available. At the same time, road construction is patchy because it's not as though you pay toll and you get a beautiful road all the way. First of all, there are jams at the toll booths. Then there is corruption. Then there's patchy construction. There are parts where you completely slow down. Everywhere there's construction work that's going on, which narrows roads down to 1 lane or 2 lane and creates a pileup. This is even on the Mumbai-Pune expressway. But the best example is the Mumbai-Goa highway, NH66. It's been under construction since 2011. In fact, political leader Raj Thackeray put it very colorfully. He used to be a huge critic of the BJP, so obviously it's at that time. He said 15,566 crores have been spent on this highway in just over a decade, while the Chandrayaan-3 mission cost only 650 crore. He also says 2,500 people have died on this highway in the last 10 years, and there's no sign of its completion. In fact, there are news reports that keep springing up saying another year. We don't even know if that's true. The upshot is that smart expressways and an expansion in highways has really helped higher income earners. People who have fancy cars, they go out for holidays, they love to drive, they're taking out their Porsches and Land Rovers, but not for people who need to use them regularly every day as a necessity, as a commute, or as part of their work. So all this good work did not lead to electoral gains for the government because it refused to listen to genuine issues. Now let's come to aviation. You would say this sector is only for the super rich, right? Those who can afford can fly. The rest of them have to look at trains, buses, what have you. But aviation should have been the epicenter of visible economic transformation, and it hasn't happened. Yes, domestic and international travel has indeed boomed. In fact, the top 20% of Indians who have seen a huge jump in their income are flitting around. They're traveling in India, across the world, and Indians have become some of the biggest tourists worldwide. Yet, things are not hunky-dory. Domestic travelers have now reached a level of 160 million, according to Destination India. There are 70 to 75 million foreign travelers, which is a 20% jump year on year. We're growing at that rate. Is infrastructure growing? Airports and other amenities? No. In fact, the number of airlines itself, whole sector is riddled with issues of flight delays, disruptions, poor customer service, grievance redress. People are on airport for hours together, don't get refunds, flights are cancelled without even a warning. In fact, there's a 34% jump in flight cancellations and delays. It has affected 950,000 passengers, says the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. Almost every top airline has faced issues. The market leader, Indigo, had almost half its fleet grounded because of problems with its faulty engines. SpiceJet and GoAir are following Jet Airways and Kingfisher and Sahara with deep financial trouble. The Tata-owned airlines with a lot of expectations went into a tailspin due to staff issues. Their pilots went on mass leave. First, it started with Vistara. Half their flights cancelled, in fact, hundreds sometimes. Just as this seemed to be recovering, happened with Air India. We don't know why the management did not see a looming problem. But who were the sufferers? Their passengers. People began to say they don't want to fly these airlines anymore. And newer airlines have not been able to fill in the vacuum. A country which is aspiring to a $5 trillion economy, in fact, finds it embarrassing, should find it embarrassing that it cannot provide infrastructure for air travel and that it's struggling. It's not planned in advance. One of the biggest reasons is absolutely high costs for everything. Anything to do with airports, as you know, as a passenger, including the user fees, what you pay is very high. It's exactly the same for the airlines, from landing costs to taxes on fuel, infrastructure, everything is sky high. There is serious handholding required for passengers as well as for airlines and for those who are setting up airport infrastructure. What does all this tell you? NDA 3 has its job cut out. It is not a single party anymore. It is heavily dependent on two outside parties. It may have crossed its first hurdle by pleasing everybody and setting up a large cabinet, but it now has to balance two sets of interests. One of its two major coalition partners who will want their states to benefit at the cost of the nation if necessary. And it has learned lessons from these general elections. So it has to balance the interests of all sections of society, including the middle class, which has been burdened almost to breaking point with rising costs and high direct and indirect taxes. The task is trickier. It's not going to be as easy as before. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has to pull off in a coalition what he failed to do for a decade when the BJP had absolute majority. Can he do it? We can only hope so. It's important for us as a nation. Thank you.